This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for this.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
Well, told them that money. Don't take it.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru, comrades, Uhuru to the world. My name is Mwezi Odom, and I am the chairperson of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign, and I am joined here by my comrade, Director Aisha Fields, who is a member of the African People's Socialist Party and an organizer with the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign on the ground in Alabama. And I want to appreciate you for being here with me today, comrade, to co-MC today's exciting event.
Uhuru, Comrade Mwezi, I'm really happy to be here, and I'm so honored to co-chair this amazing and very important webinar that we're going to be having today.
Yeah, right on, right on. Uhuru, and speaking of today's webinar, the title for today's webinar is Continuing the Struggle Against Colonialism, Hands Off Cuba, Hands Off Africa. We understand that what you just saw there in that video with these attacks that happened on July 29th should be taken very seriously. And we understand that these attacks that continue to happen on the oppressed and colonized peoples of the world, we are at a time in this lifetime when the people are rising up. There is a fierce resistance amongst the people, and we should all take this very seriously because we are organizing in this committee to expose the state because we understand that these attacks are nothing new. And as we talk about Cuba and the over 60 years of this blockade, this economic and political blockade, but also understanding that historically movements have been crushed and people have been forced underground, and there has been creating division and ideological nonsense around the struggle for the working class of the world. And so This meeting is a report back about the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa's visit or delegation to Cuba, and I'm going to be talking about that. And I'm very excited because I have some other people on here with me. But before I even introduce our wonderful panel, I would want to remind everybody to share right now. Go ahead and copy tinyurl.com/handsoffmeeting. Send that to your friends, send that to your family, send it to your comrades, tell them to get in on this meeting. There are many things happening in the month of June. And so I want to appreciate the many of you who are here on today to hear this report back, because we plan to get organized as we have been saying. So for today's delegation, or for today's report back on the delegation, we have a number of people here on our panel, and I want to welcome Unión del Barrio, who will be joining us shortly. They are actually having a conference on today as well. I want to welcome MLK Center in Havana, Cuba, Adelso Moret, who will also be here with us. And you will also be hearing from the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee, which is based out of LA. You will also be hearing from the National Coordinator with the Venceremos Brigade and with Nesbitt Crutchfield. Also CAUSE, which is an organization that is organizing amongst the Amazon labor unions, Destiny Blackwell. And you will hear from two videos from people who were unable to make it, but who have sent solidarity statements and their own report backs on Cuba as well. So that will all be coming up next in our program. But right now, I'm going to just want to take a moment to thank everybody who has continued to support this campaign. We want to appreciate everybody who showed up at our last mass meeting. And I want to thank everybody who helped raise resources, from family and friends who helped me make that trip on behalf of the campaign to Cuba as well. So I cannot go any further without saluting Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is the keynote speaker for today's exciting event, but also is the founder of the African People's Socialist Party, which was founded in 1972 to complete the revolution of the 1960s and to forward the liberation of Africa and African people. So I want to really salute the chairman who is here with us on today and who we will get a chance to learn from as we have been. So again, you saw what happened on July 29th. That video can be found on YouTube. We also have our chat moderators can also drop the link in the chat if you want to share. We ask you to share that video because, again, this is not being played on the mainstream media. There is this encirclement of information that cannot get out unless we, the people, create the avenues to make that happen. So I want to encourage everybody to watch that video, because what happened on July 29th was that 4 members of the African People's Socialist Party members of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and the Solidarity Committee, which is an organization of white people who work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, were named under these bogus indictments as falsely named as unindicted co-conspirators. And we understand that the US government, now where we are in, so fast forward, and I'm going fast because we want to give everybody a quick update on the campaign, but also invite you to, stay in touch with us because we will continue to give you updates on what's happening. But for those of you that are new, it's important to know that what is happening right now. As of April 18th, the U.S. government has indicted members of the Uhuru movement, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, who are part of the Solidarity Committee, and the main target, which is Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So on April 18th, arraignments and indictments were handed down, and in May, the comrades had to go to and report to the court and all the other stuff that has to happen under this law when you have, so-called committed a crime. And we're going to talk about what these charges are about as well. But we understand that, bottom line, this is an indictment on free speech. When the people are putting forth what is happening, calling out the the contradictions and the genocide and all of the suffering that people around the world are facing. And you can look at Omali Yeshitela's work, by the, under the leadership of his leadership in the African People's Socialist Party, going around the world, organizing people, organizing with oppressed peoples for solidarity and to defend and to denounce the predatory wars of the US and their allies. This is what it looks like when, when the people are organizing and the US state and the colonial state cannot handle that. And so they have to say that this is a weaponization of free speech. And we call it, BS because we know it is, because we know that it wasn't just on July 29th when they were coming after Omali Yeshitela. We understand that, long before, but even what we learned through this campaign was that in 2015, Omali Yeshitela was added to a hit list, a Ukrainian hit list. And we understand that this was an assassination attempt. And this was well, before this declared war, between Russia and Ukraine. So we understand that the CIA is the state operation of the US government, and that these comprehensive list of attacks continued 27 days before the raids on July 29th. We had, you can see here on the screen, a flag, that was torched outside of the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, a car that was broken into that the chairman was traveling in when we were in Oakland, California, a petition of over 130,000 signatures completely wiped clean from the internet from change.org, members of our organizations arrested under false and bogus allegations for making terroristic threats. And then, the news of indictments, and a church that one of the projects of the African People's Socialist Party, the Black Power Blueprint, was in the process of purchasing, completely torched to the ground during this process of purchasing this property. And then these economic attacks that have happened on the economic institutions of the movement as well. Black Power 96, which applied for a grant, and the Pinellas County, in a secret private meeting, revoked the grant, with false lies about Black Power 96, which has done phenomenal work for the African community in St. Petersburg, Florida, and around the world. And also, in March, we, institutions that are, connected, under the leadership of the Uhuru movement have come under attack with sanctions by the banks, Regions Bank in particular, and now we also see that with another bank as well, another large bank, Chase Bank, and GoFundMe, Stripe, and Facebook all played a role in making sure that no genuine economic development or support could come towards these institutions.
5 minutes.
So thank you, Carmen. It's going to be just a little longer than that, but thank you. Give me another 5-minute warning if you can.
Uhuru.
Thank you, Uhuru. And so, we fought back, as we have said that we have, and here we are, defending the all of the institutions of the African People's Socialist Party from all the work that they have built under the leadership. I want to get to what the charges are and what happened. What these charges are, because it's important for us to discuss this. And to understand that, one, these charges are bogus, but they're using the law that they have used to charge the Uhuru 3 is called under section 951, also known as the Agent of Foreign Governments Act. Now, this may be confused with the FARA, which is something that the Foreign Agent Registration Act, which is something that was out there in the in the ether as we were learning about what these attacks were. But we're going to have this information up on our website. We want you to know that we want to keep you informed about what these bogus allegations are and how we can continue to wage the struggle back. So I'm calling on everybody to join the counteroffensive. Because as we understand, free speech has always been illegal for the oppressed peoples. We can see this. We understand that there's a long history of African peoples whose voices have always been silenced. This is something that we have been going through. Thank you, Carmine. We're just going through these slides so much. And we understand that Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has coined the colonial mode of production, understanding that everything produced for the colonizer comes at the expense of the colonized, whether it's access to wealth, the experience of democracy, and even the ideas in the heads, of the colonizers. We understand that all of this comes at the expense of the working class peoples of the world. And what we have been saying, and as you see, you have Joe Biden there apologizing for this quote unquote original sin. I mean, the original sin is still happening, and we're not even going to get into that, but we have to understand that that was a bogus apology, and that to make a mockery of centuries of genocide of the people, we say reparations now, and the people are fighting back. So we are building, we are not retreating, we are building. And under the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign, I invite everybody to join this counteroffensive. We have principles of unity that you can find on the internet or on our website at handsoffuhuru.org. And I want to remind everybody that if you have been to our website, then you see a large, thermometer that reminds you that we have to raise resources for this fight back. One thing that I failed to mention that is extremely important is that we have to raise resources. $277,500 is our benchmark goal to be able to cover the legal expenses for this fight back. So we want to remind everybody to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate and make a donation, and to help to contribute to this legal fund, which we're going to talk about more in a little bit. But the Hands Off Uhuru, thank you, comrade. The Hands Off Uhuru campaign is going around the world. This is just a map of who we touched at our last mass meeting. I want to salute our international organizing committee, who is doing amazing work around, organizing around the world on the ground. We have taken Hands Off Uhuru on the ground, all around, and we want to appreciate everybody, because I have to continue. Before I continue, I have to give a shout out to everybody who participated in the International Day of Action that we had on May 27th, making the call to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3, hands off Chairman Amalia Shatella, and hands off the Uhuru 3. So we had an outpouring of support, and you're going to see some of these slides as our Zoom tech is just scrolling through. You have a chance to see in North Carolina, from all the way taking a stand down south. Thank you, Lisa. All the way taking it to the streets in the Northeast, in the US as well. You also see comrades on the ground who were building support for the Hands Off Uhuru in the Midwest. We had over 20 locations that were confirmed to do these really remarkable actions. We want to appreciate and salute everybody. This information and these pictures are on our website, and there is a photo album where you could see additional photos as well. So we encourage you to go there. We want to salute our comrades on the West Coast, in particular comrades with Unión del Barrio, who led a very powerful demonstration outside of the courthouse as well. And we want to also appreciate everybody internationally who stood with Hands Off Uhuru as well. We had demonstrations in London, in occupied Tanzania or South Africa, and also in Liberia, in West Africa, and also some organizing in Jamaica as well. So I cannot go any further without saluting everybody who took a stand for Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, making the name to drop the charges. This is the kind of work that you support when you support this campaign. So if you haven't already, go to handsoffuhuru.org /donate to make a donation for today. So what you can do, we want to let you know that what you can do to support this campaign is to go to our website, sign up for our newsletter, get as much information as you can. You will be receiving newsletter and emails regularly when things are happening. Again, we invite you to sign the petition, to join the committee, to donate, and to know that right now, with the help of everybody, we have been able to raise so far $226,009 have been raised for this legal fight back. As we have said that our benchmark goal for phase 1 is $277,500. And so today we have a goal to raise $2,500. That's $2,500 in today's webinar. And I know we can do it. And we can start making pledges and making those donations for today as well. So again, share. And as we say, we are going to put the state on trial, because this is the time for the people to lead what is going to be a moment that will literally change the world and restore power and dignity and unity back in the hands of the working class. So before we go into our reports for back on the ground, I will be giving a report a little bit later for the program about Cuba as well. But I'm going to now take a moment to stop the screen because we want to introduce our keynote speaker for today. And I want to appreciate our timekeeper for keeping me on time and being a little flexible there. And I do want to allow everybody to still keep your regular times, as we will be able to make some adjustments. So right now, comrades, I want to welcome Comrade Aisha, who's going to introduce our keynote speaker, Uhuru.
Uhuru comrades, it is my honor to introduce the chairman, Omali Yeshitela, who is the leader of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. Chairman Omali has fought for the liberation of Africa and African people here and around the world for more than 50 years, having been a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the 1960s and forming the African People's Socialist Party in 1972. He built the mass movement for reparations, holding the World Tribunal on Reparations to African People in 1982, and led the world in making reparations a household word. He has taken the movement beyond protest, creating over 50 institutions as the infrastructure for the liberated African workers' economy, including the Black Power Blueprint in North St. Louis. The chairman is the author of many books, including his most recent book, Vanguard, The Advanced Attachment of the African Revolution, and has spoken all over the world. In 2019, Chairman Omali won the debate at the Oxford Union on building a closer African Union. Please join me in welcoming the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, leader of the Uhuru movement, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru, Chairman.
Uhuru, I'm sorry, struggling with that. It was indicating every time I tried to come on that you had to do it. But I do want to express appreciation, especially to Comrade Chairwoman Mwezi for hosting this important meeting that we're having today, and also providing overall leadership for the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign, and for helping to bring us all into this discussion, this process. I want to express a profound appreciation to everyone here, especially all these comrades with your connections to Cuba, small but mighty, mighty Cuba, that has been such a profoundly significant force in the struggle for against the oppression of all the people there in Cuba and people around the world, and who that has institutionalized that support and that has really clearly understood that the support that it offers is not simply some kind of charity work, but it represents a part of the struggle against the colonial domination of the peoples of the world. Cuba is extremely important to us. It was in Cuba that one of the most significant conferences contributing to the really deepening of the struggle of all the oppressed peoples in the world occurred in 1966, where the Tricontinental Conference happened that had more than 500 delegates from 82 countries. And it was a conference that was so important because it was another step toward uniting the struggle against colonialism. All the peoples who were there, some of the incredible forces participated in that conference. And as we know, much of this began even before the liberation of Cuba in the 50s with the Bandung and following conferences that really moved to consolidate the unity and the effort and the strategic efforts of the people who colonized in the world today. To us in the African People's Socialist Party, that's a critical issue. To us in the African People's Socialist Party, it's because we've come to understand that we live in an era, and it was shortly coming after the initial foray of Portugal some 600 years ago into Africa that began this process of selling Black people and transferring Africans around the world, that had as a consequence the unification of the world into a single economy for the first time in history. This was a part of a policy perhaps by Portugal, but soon it became clear that all of the colonial powers, the people, all of the countries that we now know as Europe, these feudal entities, soon came to understand that the way forward, the way to developing themselves would be coming as a consequence of the assault on Africa and the colonial project. And so colonialism moved beyond simply being a policy of a particular country. And even though particular countries may have had colonialism as a policy, what emerged was an actual mode of production that Karl Marx referenced as being a primitive accumulation of capital that turned Africa into a war for the commercial hunting of Black skins, that did things in terms of the internment of the indigenous peoples in what we now know as the Americas, the assault on the East Indies, the whole India. All of this he called the primitive accumulation of capital. He characterized this as the beginning of the capitalist system, having the same significance in political economy, he says, as original sin in theology. So what we saw emerging really was a colonial mode of production that was oversimplified and understated as a primitive accumulation of capital because it spoke to the development of Europe. But that development of Europe had consequences in terms of an assault on the rest of us and the various peoples all around the world. And that's extremely important, especially for us in the African People's Socialist Party. And I speak for the African People's Socialist Party. And I do this just to say some things about who we are as a party and as a part of the explanation of why we understand the United States government attacked us. They didn't simply attack us because we do protest against injustices, the police murder, the starvation of people in particular areas, the wars, predatory wars, but also because we recognize that all of these struggles are part of a single process of a single mode of production that connects us all in this parasitic relationship where a sector of the human population lives at the expense of another sector, where an entire mode of production that's called capitalism came into existence. That something that Karl Marx also said, that what he characterized as wage slavery in England, talking about the emergence of the white workers, that wage slavery in Europe required as a pedestal slavery pure and simple in the New World. So all of this activity of when we hear people talking about workers, as we talk about workers and labor in this meeting on today, as you did in Cuba, we hear then that we're talking about most instances of workers that's referenced in this country, in the United States, and many places in Europe and otherwise. We're talking about the kind of socialism that workers' power, or socialism, I should say, that Bernie Sanders time kind of socialism, a $15 per hour wage over a number of years kind of stuff. That's not the socialism that we have come to know and respect. That's not a socialism that can only come about from our perspective as a consequence of the working people ourselves coming to power. And for the workers to come to power, they need to have this advanced attachment. They need to have their own organization and speak to their own interests, not simply to find improvements, own the job, or on the pedestal that Karl Marx talked about of slavery pure and simple that we recognize as colonialism. But we're talking about coming to power as a consequence of a process that overturns this relationship between the vast majority of the peoples of the world who live under colonial domination and the capitalist social system that is obviously led by sectors of what we have come to know as the bourgeoisie, but functions as a real colonial capitalist bourgeoisie that dominates the world. So this is what informs our politics, that we're not simply, we do serious economic development work. We've created economic development institutions. We've been sanctioned by banks, just as Venezuela has been sanctioned by banks. This is Cuba and various other countries sanctioned by US-controlled banks, which has spurred, of course, sparked a movement of de-dollarization and other kinds of economic institutions. But we don't have the advantage of that. And so they've attacked us in this fashion with sanctioning, as I mentioned, they've done to other forces trying to break from the colonial mode of production. So the thing for us is that we recognize that workers, that the consequence of the struggle for socialism, communism, what have you, is going to be the workers, working class becoming the ruling class. And you don't do that by simply trying to get better jobs. It's our responsibility to lead the people who are workers to an understanding that they must capture the full value of their labor, and they can only do that through the conquest of political power that gives us control over an economy and gives us direction toward an economy that produces life, no longer just producing life for the colonizer and the colonial capitalist ruling class, but can begin to produce life for ourselves, because it is we who produce life. All of the slaves, all the colonized people are the ones who produce life. All the working peoples of the world produce life. The stockbrokers, the bankers, the politicians, none of them produce life. Life is produced by human labor for the most part, as we lay our hands to nature and change it to meet our needs and requirements on the different kinds of social systems. So this attack that was made on the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, we see it as an attack that's made to push Africans and the colonized people back, post pre the 1966 Havana, pre the 1959 success of the revolution there, pre the 1949 success of the Chinese Revolution, pre all of those revolutionary movements that were attacking colonialism, and pre every struggle for rights that African people in the United States and in Africa have waged. This is an attempt, this is an assault on us who are fighting and clearly fighting against colonialism and not against the opinions of the ruling class that's characterized often as racism. So this is the basis of the assault on us. And this is, I believe, the thing that gives us all a capacity for strategic unity, so that we won't see a fundamental difference in what is happening to us in Cuba and Venezuela and Afghanistan and St. Louis, USA. We won't see differences there. We see different iterations of the same colonial mode of production. We see the same predators who are sucking the life and blood out of us, and sometimes we see these predators fighting among themselves, and we see forces contending with the predators on a very powerful level that challenges the relations of production, existing relations of production that we're talking about as well. I just want to thank everybody for being here and uniting with us. We believe that there's a powerfully significant thing that's happening, that the world is existing in a state of crisis that's being experienced inside the United States as well. The social fabric of the United States is tearing apart. There are people who are climbing the walls of the Capitol, who are chasing the vice president through the halls, threatening to hang him. There are people who are moving throughout the United States in various ways. The split between the bourgeoisie inside this country has resulted in charges being filed against Donald Trump, the former president. This is something that's never happened before. The planet Earth itself is suffering mightily under this particular social system. The contradictions within this country are profound. They're very deep, and the contradictions in the world are deep. We're looking at even possibilities of nuclear confrontation between Russia and the United States, between China and the United States. We see escalations of aggressions against people, sanctions, economic sanctions, starving people in various places, coming as a consequence of the United States and the whole colonial mode of production that itself is under assault because of the struggles of our people. it's a crisis, it's a critical moment, and it's really important that for us to unify and to be able to say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, to defend the Uhuru Three, say drop the charges. And the point is that it's not that we talk, the reason that they attack us. In fact, they like for us to talk sometimes. They like for us to sing to them sometimes, but it's what we say that's the problem. And if we were not saying death to colonialism, if we were not saying freedom to all the oppressed peoples of the world, if we were not saying end this unjust war that's being made against the people of Russia and Ukraine as a consequence of the intervention by the United States and the colonial powers, if we were not saying that Africa must be free and African people must be free, if we were not saying that all the political prisoners and prisoners of war would have to be released, we wouldn't be facing charges. If we were not organizing on the ground to build revolutionary political institutions and organizations, not only in the United States, but in Africa, the Caribbean, and throughout Europe, we wouldn't be having this discussion today. We wouldn't have come under the assault that's been described during this presentation. The fact of the matter is, the question of free speech is something that is connected also with what it is that we're talking about and what it is that we're trying to do as a consequence. Karl Marx once said, philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point is to change it. And so if what we were saying did not contribute to changing the world, and if what we were doing did not contribute to changing the world, we wouldn't be facing this attack right now. So we're calling on you to really double down and unite with the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. And we want to express our appreciation, a deep, most profound appreciation, precious to the precious solidarity that you have afforded us, because we believe that in your solidarity with us and with this campaign, it is a solidarity with all the African people. And it is a growing strategical unity that recognizes that we are all in the struggle against colonial domination. I want to shout out also a special shout to comrades from Union de Barrio, whose oppression and exploitation has come as a consequence of the theft of half of Mexico, and who have been made illegals as a consequence of that, just as we've been made illegal as a consequence of that, and the imposition of a colonial mode of production on our lives by settlers who are here. Thank you, comrades. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, thank you so much for that really important presentation, reminding us why it's so important for everybody to participate in this fight back in the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. And I really appreciate what the chairman is, is helping us to understand, which is that it is the work that the African People's Socialist Party has been engaged in for more than 50 years, under the leadership of our chairman, Amalia Shatella, that's been arming African people with this theory of African internationalism, which helps not only African people, but everybody understand what the primary contradiction is in the world today. Why it is that African people must fight for a united, liberated Africa as a part of the whole struggle for all of the world's oppressed people to once again have freedom and self-determination. So I just really want to appreciate that presentation and Chairman's call for us to double down and contribute to this incredible and very significant fight back. And I want to really call on everybody to contribute, with your resources to help us to win this, this campaign, and to help to raise the resources that we need for the legal defense. You can go to handsoffuhuru.org right now and help us raise the $2,500 that we, with your help, can raise in this webinar today. That's our goal. So again, go to handsoffuhuru.org and give what you can, to help us reach today's goal that will help us reach our overall goal, which we're very close to raising. So just really want to thank everybody in advance for that. And what I'd like to do right now is turn it back over to our MC, Chair Mwezi Odom, who's going to lead us to our next section of the program. Uhuru Mwezi.
Uhuru comrade, thank you so much for that summation. And I want to also join in uniting with you with the presentation by Chairman Amalia Shatella and continue to express deep solidarity and appreciation for the history of Africa and Cuba and the importance of this struggle. So just want to say thank you for that, comrade. And I'm looking forward to this next section. And I hope that you have already gone to handsoffuhuru.org/donate and made your contribution or your pledge for today. And I am going to now invite up our panel. We have, as I said, a remarkable panel of just a few of the delegations and delegates that were there with us on the ground in Cuba. And I want to also give a shout out to the LA Hands Off Cuba committee, who was also here joining us on the Zoom today. Uhuru, Mark, I see you in the chat as well. So I'm going to start off by just to give a quick overview, and then we're going to watch our first report back will be a video, and then we'll go into our presentations. So as that is coming up right now, I want to again let everybody know that this report back that I'm going to give is fairly brief, and we might have to go back a few slides. I know we're just adjusting that down. Okay. This report back that I'm going to give is fairly brief because, again, there is so much to cover, but we have a Flickr account on the internet where you can see images and kind of go back and learn more about the delegation. So I have to, before I continue, I have to salute the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee, who is this remarkable committee of activists who have built over the years deep solidarity with Cuba and with the Cuban masses of the people, and have kept true to the demands that Cuba has been demanding for, to end the blockade, to end the travel bans and the sanctions, and to remove Cuba from the state-sponsored list of terrorists. And so this delegation invited several other labor unions to join along on this delegation to Cuba, and Hands Off Uhuru was one of them. And these delegations were organized at the Center for Trabajadores de Cuba, also known as the Workers' Central Union of Cuba as well. So that picture right there that you see is just a shout out, a picture of just some of us that were there on that delegation. I want to just appreciate everybody for a really wonderful time. So next slide. So again, as I mentioned, the CTC is who sponsored this delegation. Again, this was a labor union delegation, which had, attracted delegates from, Central America, from Africa, and, also throughout the US as well. They expected to have over something like 100 different delegations there on this for the May Day, to celebrate Labor Day, or as they say, May Day. And however, this delegation was the first time in history, or in this delegation's history, that where, U.S. union activists were also explicitly, invited to join. So our delegation was one of them. And when we arrived at Puesta del Sol Hotel, which we were given some history about this hotel, which actually served as one of the quarantine sites during the pandemic. And this was also where our internship and our 3 to 4 day conference was held at the Puesta del Sol Hotel, which was right next to the CTC, where we had our conference and our activities as well. So some of the activities that we did a lot of visits, which you can actually see in this issue of the Burning Spear, because we're going to continue to lay this out, the Burning Spear newspaper. But we got on buses, we went over to the Federation Trade Center. This is one of the regional offices. This was founded back in 1945, where part of the discussions that we had at this particular location, we're looking at how the labor unions work. Questions that, delegates had questions about child care and collective bargaining and, pay wages. And it's really what the chairman was raising, because as we understand, when the workers are in power, right, we don't have to even, negotiate or find a way how to make things work, because the people always know how to solve problems when they have power in their own hands. But I think this was just a great example of workers organizing, so I just really want to appreciate that. Then on May Day, which was typically a day where thousands of Cubans and people from around the world come to celebrate the workers, you may have seen videos and heard of what May Day, what happens on this day. Unfortunately, there was really severe weather the night before, and property and equipment was damaged. So this May Day parade that was supposed to happen on May 1st did not happen, but instead a very special meeting at the Plaza de Revolución took place, where all the delegates were invited to go and had a chance to hear a presentation from Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, where he presented his, with two speeches, and really started to make the call for the importance of even what we've heard the chairman raise, and what has been expressed is that solidarity is important, but we're going to need some stronger stuff as well. So I just wanted to say that it was really powerful opportunity. There is a video that I would like to play, but I will. I think we're going to pause on that for today. But I want to salute the remarkable instructors and professors and deans and leaders of the CTC who work at the University of Havana, Cuba, and the students. We had a really amazing opportunity to have an exchange with the Federation of University Students at University of Havana, and from there built some really great relationships with some of the professors who are doing some really amazing projects and works in the African and in the working class community as well. Following that, we also made a trip to the hospital, the Calixto Garcia Hospital, which was just, almost like next door to the university, and delivered over $40,000 of medical and tech supplies. We had a chance to learn from the doctors. This is a surgical hospital, where they do, trauma and other types of medical care. And these are some of the doctors and our delegation who were there providing the medical supplies. We also had a chance to visit the Comités de Defensa. This is a this is what it looks like when the workers are in power, essentially, and to defend what has always been understood as the importance of education and, social services and building power for the people. So this picture doesn't show it all, but if you go to our site, you'll be able to see a little bit more, where you get a chance to see, housing projects and a beautiful garden and a playground that has been built and a basketball court. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound like the Black Power blueprint? I mean, to me, it was just really amazing to see again, power in the hands of the working class. And so this is just a picture with two of the African women who are leaders of this really remarkable project that also has educational educational institutions that are just off the property as well, so that they can continue to provide education for the community as well. And that bus that you see right there, we had to put this in there because, and I want to appreciate Lowell for your just remarkable reporting of this whole delegation. This is a photo that you took. This bus right here, with Mark gave us a brief history, is the same bus that Pastors for Peace used years ago, is the same bus that they have been using, taking for delegations crossing the border back and forth. So it was really amazing to be on this bus. I just have to say that was great news to hear. And then we then had a chance to, on the International Solidarity Conference with Cuba Against Anti-Imperialism, where thousands and thousands of delegates, came for this really remarkable conference and heard presentations from Chris Smalls, who was part of our delegation with the Amazon Labor Union. Of course, the president, and this all took place at the Fidel Castro Ruiz Center. And there is some more videos and things that we want to get up about this as well. So I won't go into that too much longer, but I do think that the presentation by the president was important because, again, he did make the call that what we are fighting against is looking at how neocolonialism is also, how it's impacting the people and the lives of, people in Cuba, and to look at the blockade differently. So those were some of the tenets of his presentation, which was also very important. So I'm going to pause right there because we have a video that we're going to show. This video is, and I'll just give a brief introduction as we pull it up, yes. And this video is going to be of Luis Andre. He is a member that we met out in Cuba. He is from Rio de Janeiro, or he's African living in Rio de Janeiro, and has a message for us. He was unable to come today, but sends his regards. So we're going to listen to that right now. Uhuru.
Hi everybody, I'm Luis Andre, and actually I'm a part of a federation that represents public works from cities of the Rio de Janeiro state in Brazil. It's like a syndicate, like you say, it's kind of trade union. First of all, I want to ask you for apologize because my English is not very good. I'm very grateful for the invitation from the sister Luis to participate of this mass meeting. I'm so sorry for not to be able to do it in personally. Maybe next time you can be together. I want to share with you guys my short experience about my Cuba time. In Brazil, our media power is serving the imperialism and colonialism. So they say what they want to manipulate people's heart and minds. For me, that work defending and protecting workers' rights, the class conscience is the reality. But for the great majority of people, they don't recognize themselves like workers, and so many times they stay supporting the white old rich men that are always in the power by here, doing things are very bad for the workers. So I had the opportunity, I must to say the great opportunity, to go to the Cuba twice. And the first time, the economic situation was better, and I could see happy and very well-informed people everywhere. The tourism was strong, and the criminal economic bloc wasn't putting people in a starved situation like now. On my second turn over there, the pandemic and the economic bloc are causing so much suffering to our brothers and sisters in Cuba. Is Cuba a perfect place? No, it isn't. Like everywhere else, they have their issues. But it's unbelievable to me that the government of the United States can defend freedom for their people and at the same time can respect different ways to live. The Cuba socialism is hope. They are very successful people in living this socialism, where people have the opportunity to develop knowledge as much they want. People have health care for free to anyone, to everyone, with quality and human support. They share what they have. They don't give away what's left. This is solidarity. It was very important to me personally to see Americans over there. People who don't agree with these economic aggressions. The resistance of yours is the hope that one day things could be different. I believe that the only way to change this situation in Cuba, in Africa, in Brazil, in USA, everywhere, is to occupy the political spaces of power. When our people develop the conscious, critical thoughts that the only revolution that really matters is the education revolution, and when you have the power and the organization to get this political space for changing laws and directions to reach people's heart and mind, we will get there. Well, this is a brief opinion of mine. I'd like to share my contact with you guys, and if any of you need something from me, just let me know. I want to extend myself for more. Thank you very much for the honor to share some of your time to listen to me. My best regards from Brazil. Uhuru, Uhuru always.
Uhuru, Uhuru, Uhuru always. Freedom always. Thank you, Luis, for that presentation. And now I'm going to welcome up next, since we have it up on the screen, Robert Avila. If you are ready, we can have you go next, comrade. I think we are waiting on Comrade Benjamin. Oh, he is on, actually. So let's do this.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And Robert, if you don't mind, I might have, just so we can keep in order, Comrade Benjamin go, because I know he's at this conference as well. And then we can turn it back over to you, but we can hear you. Your sound is great.
All right, I'll wait for y'all call then.
Thank you, Comrade Uhuru. Uhuru. Oh, and now we lost Benjamin. Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna just make a decision and we're gonna turn it back over to you, Robert. And Comrade Benjamin is waiting to be invited up as a panelist, so we'll get him on in just a moment. So let's turn it back over to Robert, and then Benjamin will follow. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So hello everyone, Uhuru. My name is Robert Avila. I'm a university student at the California State University Northridge, CSUN, and I study ecology and evolution. But on the side, I do a lot more organizing at the university level. I got involved with the U.S. Hands Off Cuba committee when some members decided to advertise their yearly May Day trip to Cuba at an event hosted by the Palestinian Youth Movement in Los Angeles. I was there. I heard about these guys. They're like, would you like to go to Cuba? And I was like, yes. And now that's how I've been. And I've been with the committee ever since. So now I'm here representing the Los Angeles chapter of US Hands Off Cuba. So sorry if that's a mouthful, but in short, we are a wide coalition made up of many different cultural and political groups. And I believe at the moment 9 different labor unions that all agree on 3 points of unity. 1, lift the blockade on Cuba. 2, lift the travel ban and other anti-Cuba policies. And 3, remove Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. And we started back in 2017 when some of our founding members participated in an ecological conference in Cuba. They came back to LA and realized that there was no local Cuba solidarity group. So the next best option was to make one. So getting help from other organizations and different elders in the organizing world, we grew to what we are today. We started as a group that focused on education and educating the general US population on Cuba. And now we're moving on to organizing the US population to demand the liberation of Cuba and her people from the imperialist aggressions of the United States. So you might be asking yourself, how we do that? Do we just read about Cuban news and talk about it and hope people believe us? And although we do hold, we have historically held many numerous education events. And most recently, we hosted a representative from the Cuban embassy in LA to talk about the situation, let the general public ask questions, let people learn from, from the mouth of the horse right there. The main thing is organizing, is letting people learn for themselves what the blockade is and to experience it themselves. So we organize various trips to Cuba, our biggest one being our yearly trip to May Day, which is the one I'll be talking about now. The one Comrade Maisy just covered, but I'll be reiterating some things, but it was a really big organization, it was a really big delegation, and many different experiences. And it was a whole thing. Yeah. So let's see, on these trips, we are educated about Cuba, her system of organization, her culture, and her history. There's always free time for members of our trip to walk around the island, talk to locals, experience firsthand what a blockade looks like from the most powerful imperialist power on earth. On the trip, you not only learn about the blockade and the effects of the effects it has on the Cuban people, but you also learn about how it affects people in the U.S. Despite the harsh conditions Cuba has been put through, Some of the most groundbreaking medical advances in human history have been accomplished on that island. They've been able to eliminate HIV transition from mother to child. They've developed a lung cancer vaccine, which is a lung cancer vaccine. Like, that's so crazy. Like, I don't know how much more to emphasize that. And they continue to be the safest country in the world for a Black baby to be born, as indicated by their low infant mortality rates. More information on that can be found on Cuban medical scholars. Sorry, I'm not one, but that's just like a little summary about that. Let's see. So our delegation this year was a bit of a new experiment in our organization. We wanted to create a delegation of labor and youth. So the committee's emphasis was to prioritizing representatives from labor unions and youth who are interested in working not only for the committee, but to learn about Cuba, just like for themselves, and to bring back lessons from Cuba to their respective organizations. Our delegation participated in 2 conferences, both before and after May Day. So repeating a bit of what Comrade Wesey said, the first conference was in the Pasantilla, that's what it was called, which was a yearly conference organized by the Center for Cuban Workers, the CTC in Spanish. So this conference was initially created to connect labor unionists within the Americas together and create solidarity within the region. And this is the first year where delegations from a delegation from the United States was invited. That was our delegation. You can see it on the screen being shared. It's the top left picture. Well, it's all the pictures, but that was like the first one we took at the Cuban office for the World Federation of Trade Unionists, I believe. So yeah, at this conference, all of us shared labor experiences from our respective countries. We shared aspects about our organizing, shared different situations that we all encountered, how we face them, how we can teach other people from other countries about, oh, if you went through this similar problem, we went through that here. This is how we historically struggled through that, and we want to share our lessons, and vice versa. All of us had different situations. In the Pasantilla in particular, this did not have delegations from all Latin American countries, but it was a big majority of them. And the second conference was the International Solidarity with Cuba Conference against imperialism. This was after May Day, and this was a worldwide conference divided into different topics in labor organizing, organized by Cuban workers, and organized by Cubans for the rest of the world. Moisey talked about that, so I'll just omit a little bit of that. But we saw many different presentations from different groups, so many numerous groups, can't name them all. And most importantly, what we did was we also partnered with the nonprofit Not Just the Tourists that gave each member of our delegation a suitcase of donation medical supplies, sterile medical gloves, syringes, wound care kits, and hospital supplies that are not available due to the blockade. And we do this to show that our support isn't only rhetorical and have a vested interest in keeping this country alive. These people and their movement are such an example to the United States, and we have so much to learn from them. I see that I'm kind of reaching my time here, but we do more work. We're going to be doing more work here in the US. We're going to be hosting our own Reportback June 17th in Koreatown at the Kiwa Center. The way you can find us is by emailing us. It's lahandsoffcuba@gmail.com. I am going to post it in the chat. We also have a website, ushandsoffcubacommittee.com, just plain and simple. This revolution and this country is such an example that we could all learn from, and especially as organizers in the US, we're fighting the same power, and the best thing we can do is connect with these people. So I'll leave the links in the chat, and I hope all of you come to our meetings, come to our Reportback. June 17th, we're hosting more events. We're going to be hosting a concert soon. That'll be fun, all Cuban music. We're thankful for the party for inviting us on this panel, and for Moisey to coming with us on the trip. So thank all of you guys. Uhuru, I'll leave the resources in the chat right now.
Uhuru. Uhuru, Robert, thank you so much for that, taking it a little step further about what happened, and just, like you said, a glimpse of what really happened on the ground with this delegation. So I want to salute you and thank you so much for being on, comrade. And I hope you stick around as well. And I hope everybody who is listening and who is joining us on today is continuing to share this information and also going to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And I want to appreciate those who are already who have already made some contributions for today in today's webinar. And thank you so much for putting that information in the chat as well. So I am now very honored to welcome up Comrade Benjamin Prado. As the chairman has mentioned, Benjamin is the Undersecretary for Unión del Barrio, and part of the work that Unión has done historically is to continue the anti-colonial struggle, from Alaska to Chile. And this is a really important struggle, and I want to really appreciate the comrade for being on, who I know has a brief window to pop in and pop out, and just want to salute you as well. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Comrade Mwezi, Uhuru to everybody that's joining the Hands Off Uhuru and Hands Off Africa webinar and campaign. This really significant report back, really want to appreciate on behalf of Unión del Barrio. Unión del Barrio, because we see ourselves as part of one continental struggle to defeat imperialism. We definitely recognize the significance and importance of the Cuban Revolution. And there's a reason why U.S. imperialism doesn't want people to go and visit, right? There's a reason why the U.S. puts all these restrictions on people's ability to travel and move freely and be able to observe what is happening inside revolutionary Cuba. And the reason why is because they know that the Cuban example, the example of human solidarity and the example of socialism is what inspires people and what inspires humanity to be the best of what humanity can be. We look at revolutionary Cuba and have learned significantly because of the lessons, the historical lessons that Comrade Fidel, who's posted up here behind me, right? The first and second declaration of Havana that laid out the contention between two irreconcilable forces, the forces of revolution and the forces of Cuba, the vision of creating a more humane world where human solidarity is a foundation and principles that guide humanity. And on the other end, we have the brutal, vicious, sick, parasitic capitalist system, right, that has imposed misery on humanity, that has imposed a condition of suffering all the way around the world. And the Cuban Revolution, if you had the opportunity to visit there in the mid-90s, late 90s, during the very difficult period that they went through because of the U.S. genocidal blockade, economic, commercial, and financial blockade on Cuba, that still exists today, that was imposed more than 60 years ago with the objective of strangling economically, financially, Cuba's ability to create just basic conditions, right? When we saw the fall of the Soviet Union, Cuba was left to really close ranks and stood before the empire and before the world in uncompromising unity as a people to continue their revolution. Had the opportunity to go there several times after and participate in the May 1st International Workers' Day March, and it is impressive to see millions of people really celebrating power in the hands of working people, that it is truly extraordinary, the priorities of building a society based on solidarity, based on friendship, camaraderie, and really continues to inspire us as to what we need to do in order to build revolution here and everywhere. And that requires, revolutionary organization, that requires defeating this parasitic system that we know and that we live in today. So that, and the same way that they continue to attack not only Revolutionary Cuba, but its influence throughout Nuestra America. When we look at the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Nuestra America that was established both by Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez Frias back in 2004, I believe it was, building that alternative vision for the entire continent to be in solidarity, to put and put all the economic wealth of these countries at the service of the people, providing things such as surgery for blind people to be able to see again with their Operación Milagros, which is, their ability to send doctors throughout Nuestra America, Cuba's medical brigades that go throughout not only Latin America, but the world, including Africa, to really save lives, right? And that is the example of Revolutionary Cuba, the example of Revolutionary Venezuela. And what we see today is that the US has continued to double down on attacking these important references for us. You read about in the corporate capitalist newspapers, all their slander against the Cuban Revolution and against Venezuela. The same way that they slander the Uhuru movement, the same way that the corporate media at the service of this parasitic system continues to slander our movements as revolutionary forces here in the United States. And that's why it's so significant, right? The ability of the African People's Socialist Party to put out an alternative worldview through the Burning Spear. And, we have some we share with our members, making sure that we are creating that class consciousness, that historical consciousness, anti-colonial consciousness to build revolutionary organization and to win our liberation. We really want to salute the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa for standing strong and defending our comrades, the Uhuru 3, who are facing the same attacks, for providing that same example for our peoples here within the political borders of the United States, within the US empire, of the necessity of building dual and contending power, that same contention between the forces of revolution and building human solidarity and the forces of reaction, the forces of colonial oppression. And that's why we stand in unity with Chairman Amalia Shatella, Comrade Penny Hess, and Comrade Jesse Neville to say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, because your example is what the US wants to extinguish. They want to intimidate, they want to harass, they want to eventually, their attempts to try to silence the African People's Socialist Party and the African People's Solidarity Committee. And we know that we're not going to allow that to happen, that we are going to continue to mobilize like we did on African Liberation Day back a week ago, 2 weeks ago, to mobilize where we are, to make sure that they touch one, they touch all of us, and that we're going to continue to stand in uncompromising unity with the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa. Thank you very much, comrades. As you mentioned, there is a prison conference that we're organizing here in San Diego, so want to make sure that check in there, make sure that we continue to move this struggle forward, because as we said, we have to organize every spaces where we're at, in our barrios, in the schools, and even in the prisons, right? Because they've set up this colonial system to capture us and try to put us in these terrible concentration camps known as prisons. So we want to salute Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, and viva la Revolución Cubana, viva la Revolución Socialista, and long live Fidel.
Long live Fidel. Uhuru, comrade. Just really want to appreciate that. I know you got to go, but I just really want to salute your presentation and just, deepening the importance of this struggle that is happening. As you say, our political north is south of the border. And I think that that's very important, and even what's happening right now in Peru currently. And just to salute the 40-year bond between the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru and Unión del Barrio, that we will see freedom in our lifetime and go on and get some more work and seize in territory in San Diego.
Uhuru sounds good, comrade. Thank you.
Uhuru, comrade. Thank you. Uhuru. All right, everyone. Well, again, I just want to appreciate our really profound panel. We have, we're going to hear next from Brother Adelso with the MLK Center in Havana, Cuba. And I want to appreciate those of you who are continuing to donate at handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Again, we have a goal of raising $2,500, and we're going to talk more about that in the appeal and why it's important that you donate. And I see Brother Adelso is up now, so I will turn it over to you, Uhuru, comrade. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you, everyone. It's been really moving to hear all those comrades talking about Cuba and what is going on here. Thank you first, Brother O'Malley. What you said is true. I mean, sanctions, economic sanctions are really starving and affecting our people. And we've been accused constantly of violation of human rights. But you don't see in Cuba the police raiding or attacking the house of anyone. So that should be clear. That should be clear. Also, Brother O'Malley, you talk about solidarity, and in Cuba we say that solidarity is not to give what we have to spare, but rather to share what we have. In the same way Luis Andre pointed out in his video. And also regarding Luis Andre, I do think it's important that we take the political space that the elite in power are having today. And then with Comrade Robert Avila and with Comrade Benjamin Prado, as you mentioned, education, organizing, mobilization, all those things are important. And that is why they are so afraid of O'Malley Gisela and his party of Socialist Africans there, because you are organizing people, you are making people aware of what is going on, and you are fighting back. Take care, all of you, but please keep on raising hell. I'm talking about solidarity and our motto today, that hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. For us in Cuba, Africa is part of the very essence of our homeland. And unfortunately, as a result of 4 centuries of cruel slave trade, almost 1,300,000 Africans were brought to our island enslaved. But their strong presence marked forever the history of Cuba. In those dark bellies of slave ships that brought to Cuba women, men, and children of more than 200 ethnic groups from Asian African cultures, they brought with them also their African customs, their taste, their beliefs, their traditions, and that was a great contribution to our culture and decisively to the formation of the Cuban nationality. Those white slave owners couldn't take away from our African brothers and sisters what they brought with them. And we need to thank Africa for that. But then it's important also to say that the culture of caution found its maximum expression in our 19th century independence struggle. People should know that most of the troops in our liberating army and many of the leaders were of African descent. And some of the presenters before me were referring to Fidel Castro, and I have something here from Fidel that I would like to tell you, and it is that Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro emphasized that the moral debt and the duty of compensation that Cubans have with Africa by virtue of the crucial role of Africans and their descendants in the independence and revolutionary war as well as for their contribution to the construction of the Cuban nation, and that is why Fidel affirmed the fulfillment of solidarity obligations is not a virtue, it's a duty. And we need to keep all that in our minds when we talk about Africa. Many people know that almost 500,000 Cubans fought in Africa against colonialism and for independence. And we have the sad figure of 2,289 of them that lost their lives fighting in Africa, in military missions in Angola. And also we need to refer to that Angola war that an action that was baptized as Carlota. Carlota was a Black woman, and they named this action Carlota precisely as a tribute to that Black Lucumí slave woman who led to slave uprisings in the Cuban province of Matanzas in 1843 and died fighting for her freedom. So were not only men, were men, women, children who contributed to our independence in Cuba's world. And we need to keep that also in mind. We need also to say that in all these years, thousands, hundreds of thousands of Cuban collaborators have provided their services in Africa in the sectors of health, education, construction, sport, agriculture, and many other fields. So we try to keep up with what we feel is our duty with Africa. People who have been visiting Cuba, I saw some of the presenters referring to last May Day brigades that were coming to Cuba. I myself was with a group of 150 young people coming with the International People's Assembly organized by the New York People's Forum by Manolo de los Santos. I saw some of the photos of the places you visited. Next time you come to Cuba, I would like you to visit a special place we have in Cuba, and it is the existence in Havana of a park of African heroes, which honors the founders of those nations. And this is an initiative without precedent in the world. So please, next time you come to Cuba, ask for the Park of African Heroes. Now, this is what you're seeing now. I had the opportunity about 2 weeks ago to be accompanying 5 people that came from an organization called Pan-Africanist Agency. These people were here with Seba. Seba is a fighter. I can tell you more about him. His name is Kemi Seba, and he's a Pan-Africanist political leader. He's also a journalist. He's been writing books about this. Here we see him, first of all, in the first photo with Marixa from the Red Barrio de Afrodescendentes. We went to UNEAC, the Organization of Cuban Artists and Writers, that is today is working in the trying to fight against some race issues that we still have in Cuba, problems that may arise and all that. We also went to Casa de las Americas, where they met with people there that are taking care of the African studies. Also, they met with the members of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, because one of the things Seba wanted to tell us was precisely that they need to see more actions, official actions from Cuba in the international arena, as it was happening in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. these government officials told Mr. Seba that even though times were not the same, Cuba is still supporting the struggle of Africa in every field. And then in the other photo, we see Seba with the president of Yoruba Association of Cuba, because for us to keep up our traditions and African, human religions of African roots is important as well. Mr. Seba's work today is mostly referring to the extractivism that is still happening in Africa, and that remains being the most enduring economic model in Africa. That the continent procures the world with bodies, brains, copper, cobalt, oil, gas, diamond, gold, wood, fish, artifacts, and cultural heritage. And this model do not only drain resources, it also blocks Africa's capacity to create, produce, and develop. It bleeds its dry at the expense of its population, already blighted by extreme poverty. And then we also need to emphasize that the foundations of this model were laid during colonialism, but the infrastructure of extraction is part of the what is implemented by imperialist Western superpowers that have deployed a geopolitical arsenal based on secret defense agreements and retrogressive interventionism. Only having a Pan-African grassroots movement together with the support of solidarity forces from other parts of the world will be able to push for the decolonization of African economies. Again, I want to thank all the people that were just referring to Cuba. I want to thank all the presenters and the people that are expressing their solidarity with Cuba. And please count on Cuba for anything that should be given in order to help Africa in its struggle against colonialism. Thank you for all your support. Once more, I'm Uhuru, Hands Off Africa. Thank you.
Uhuru, Brother Adelso. Thank you so much for that presentation, and just want to appreciate you also introducing another organization that couldn't be here. You said Kemi Seba, and I look forward to continuing to build these relationships. I'm gonna just want to again salute this really profound panel, and just what we all know is that this cannot be the last time that we meet, that we continue to build. And I want to, I know Comrade Aisha, you might have something to say, but is also preparing to leave this webinar. So I wanted to turn it over to you, Co-MC, if you wanted to say anything else before we introduce our next speaker, Uhuru. Oh, and maybe she's not. Okay, there we go.
Uhuru, comrades, I just want to appreciate all the presentations up to now. And I really want to salute Comrade Adelso, who is an incredible comrade who we had the opportunity to meet when the party sent a contingent of forces to Cuba in 2021. And Comrade Adelso was a really critical part of our ability to experience Cuba there. He served as our interpreter, but we departed as comrades, and knowing that we have a brother, in Cuba who is supporting and really appreciating the leadership of our chairman and of our party and our movements. I just really want to appreciate and salute Comrade Adelso and thank him so much for participating. And I just want to really call on people to continue to give. I know that that there are people who've been giving throughout the webinar so far. We really want to thank you for everything that you've contributed, and we want to call on you to ask your friends, your family, your comrades, your coworkers to participate in this process, and to also donate and participate in the next webinar and find ways that you can connect to this really important campaign. So thank you again to everybody who's donated and to everybody who has yet to donate. You know, we ask you to dig deep and salute the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Comrade Mwezi, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the presentations that we have still yet to come. So Uhuru, Comrade Mwezi.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Comrade. Aisha, appreciate you. And I just want to, before we move to our next speaker, just acknowledge where people are tuning in from, because I do think it's important to give acknowledgement of that. So we do have people tuning in from Palmdale, California, San Diego, California, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Ecuador, Miami, Florida, Houston, Texas, Fort Myers, Florida, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, again, St. Louis, Missouri, Huntsville, Alabama, and of course, Havana, Cuba. So I want to salute everybody, and we are about to welcome up our next speaker. And I do want to just acknowledge those who have been donating today. I want to appreciate Stephen for your donation, Jim, MQ, Wendy, Brendan, Lisa, and Leslie, and an anonymous donation. We want to appreciate all these donations that are coming in right now. And we have a pledge in the chat for $50 for our MC, Aisha, who will make that pledge on the 15th. So thank you so much, comrades. So go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Donate to this legal defense fund. Larry Wells is going to donate $50. I see that in the chat. Uhuru, comrade, let's keep those donations coming in. Let's dig deep, as has been said. We can do this, and we will do this. We will win. So it is my pleasure right now to welcome up Comrade Nesbitt Crutchfield. Nesbitt Crutchfield is the national coordinator with the Venceremos Brigade, really doing amazing work with the Miami car caravans, and really looking forward to your presentation, comrade. So I want to welcome you. And Nesbitt also had an opportunity to visit the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida recently. And so it was just great to continue to build these connections. So I see you're unmuted, but your video is off, comrade. So let us know if you need any assistance with that. And there you are, Uhuru.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
I wanted to thank the chair, Omali Yeshitela. I want to thank Mwezi. And I want to thank show my appreciation to the Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party, and to the peoples of the African People's Socialist Party, and everyone that's on this call. You know, there's 55 people on this call, which is just really, really great. Truly is a mass call, and that's very, very impressive. You know, I'm here representing the National Coordinating Committee of the Venceremos Brigade. I'm also representing the Committee to Protect Free Speech in Miami. And also I'm a participant in the car caravan. So these are three organizations that support Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, and I'm really honored to be speaking today. I only have two goals in reference to my presentation. One goal is to encourage every person on this call who have been to Cuba to go back, and for everyone who has not been to Cuba to go. It's really important for us to know exactly what we are talking about when we talk about how the embargo on the blockade that the United States has held against Cuba for 60 years is affecting Cuba. And the best way for us to know that is to go ourselves. And for those of us who've been, to go back, because things are happening daily, not weekly, but daily, and it's important for us to show our support for Cuba and show support for trying to overcome this blockade, to reduce the sanctions against Cuba, and to remove Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorist lists. These are things that we must do, and I think that if we go to Cuba ourselves, we'll be much more involved in empirical experience around that. Secondly, I think it's important for us to understand that we have a unity of purpose, and the unity of purpose is that we must fight for freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. Both the African People's Socialist Party and the Venceremos Brigade and the car caravans have all been subject to being accused of being basically mouthpieces for other people. The Venceremos Brigade and the Committee to Defend Free Speech have been accused by Mario Rubio, senator from Florida, being mouthpieces for Cuba. Uhuru and the African People's Socialist Party have been accused by the FBI and the American government, United States government, of being mouthpieces for Russia, for the Russian Federation. Why would you be mouthpiece of them when you have so many things to say for yourself, dealing with freedom of speech, dealing with what's happening in the Black community, what's happening in the communities throughout the United States, what's happening in Cuba. And what they're basically saying is that we don't like what you're saying, and so we're going to accuse you of being mouthpieces for someone we regard as being our enemy. So we have a unity of purpose, unity of fighting for freedom of speech and fighting for hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. The Venceremos Brigade is an organization that has been taking the grace of people to Cuba for over 52 years. We started in 1969 when we participated in the 10,000-ton harvest, and that was in '69, and we've been sending brigades to Cuba ever since that time. We regard ourselves as the oldest young organization around Cuba activism that exists throughout the world, because even though we've been doing it since '69, we tried to attract as many young people, as many people of color, as many non-binary people as possible to supporting Cuba. When I attended the Mayday Brigade, I attended with Mwezi and with a number of other people on this call. The thing that sticks in my mind is the meeting at the Council of Ministers on May Day, on May the 1st, when Miguel Diaz-Canel talked to us and encouraged us to emphasize solidarity. On the next day, after we met at the Council of Ministers, we met in Havana, and the largest of the various different subjects of discussion was solidarity. So I think that what we take with us, and what I took with me is that it's important for us to work in solidarity both with Cuba, work in solidarity with each other, both in the United States and internationally, and in support of Cuba. And that's something that's important for us to do. We need to work, eradicate Cuba off of the state-sponsored terrorist list. The United States has labeled Cuba a terrorist state, and yet we have just been informed that negotiations occurred in Havana between the nation of Colombia and the rebels, and they have come to a ceasefire only through the efforts and the work of the Cuban government. It's important for us to talk a little bit about the Committee to Protect Free Speech. That committee sent a delegation on Friday, May the 19th, a delegation from Miami went to St. Petersburg and met with the sisters and brothers at the African People's Socialist Party. We met with Akili, we met with Shimarenga, we met with two other members of the party, and we brought with us a delegation of 7 people. 5 people from the Committee to Protect Free Speech, 1 person from the Tampa 3, 1 person from the Florida 14, and basically we committed ourselves to working with the African People's Socialist Party on trying to form a coalition that will work to have a free speech organizing committee, and that we will have a program in Miami dealing with free speech, dealing with freedom of assembly, and dealing with support for Hands Off Uhuru, support for the African People's Socialist Party, and support for our caravan and the committee. The last thing I would like to say is that it's important for us to keep in mind that the car caravan in Cuba, the car caravan in Miami is being hassled, is being intimidated by gusanos, by haters who are trying to defend not giving support for Cuba. They're trying to prevent us from our free speech. They're trying to prevent us from our freedom of assembly. The same thing applies to what the FBI is trying to do with the African People's Socialist Party. They're trying to shut you up because people are listening to you, because people are paying attention to you, because people know that what you're talking about not only deals with the Black community in the United States, not only deals with support for Cuba, but it also deals with support for those African countries on the motherland that are trying to survive, trying to work together, and your work trying to give support to them is vital. And the work that you do in support of Cuba, the work you do in support of Venezuela, the work you do in support of Colombia, all of this work is vital, and the United States is trying to shut you up because more and more people are listening, more and more people are understanding that what the African People's Socialist Party is doing is trying to spread the word of solidarity, support, not only for Cuba, but for people in the Black community, and dealing with bringing forth support internationally for Cuba freedom. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, and the great work that you're doing, and thank you very much.
Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Cuba, hands off Africa. Thank you, comrade, Brother Nesbitt. Really, really wonderful report. And I just want to appreciate the deepening of the crisis in Cuba, the crisis of colonialism, really, because they have to contend now with everybody who is, with the working class and those who are in solidarity with the working class's rise to power. And so I just really want to appreciate what you shared around the, current crisis, the current contradictions that are taking place, as well as your very simple demands, and I unite with that as well. Thank you so much, and salute to the work, and forward to the which we will give an announcement for the for the Cuba rallies that are taking place on June 25th. So if you have anything to add in that part, please add it in the chat as well, Brother Nesbitt, and we will be announcing it. I see here in the chat here, Chairman writes, car caravans equates with freedom rides of the southern US that were also met with extreme violence. Yes, Uhuru Chairman, and just want to appreciate this entire panel. So we have one more report. We have a video, but there is some issues with the file. The sound is kind of cutting in and out. And so for the quality of the program, we're just going to show the picture of this comrade, because I really want to salute Memory Nitembu, who I met literally as I was pulling the Hands Off Uhuru banner off the wall at the international conference. Saw this sister, we met eyes, we hugged, and we exchanged information, and that was it. And then called her, and she sent this video. And so I want to just appreciate Memory so much. She's a student at ELAM, which is the Latin American School of Medicine. She is also serves in the capacity as an ELAM scholar, but also works through the University of Havana Medical School, and also serves as the National Public and Institutional Relations Officer for the Union of African Students in Cuba, helping to build relations between Africans, in Cuba, and also to help people better understand the conditions on the continent as well. So really important work that she's doing. This video, I'm gonna, we'll do some more work on it and get it cleaned up, but I wanted to just salute Sister Memory for making this video. And yes, and for the sake of time, we are going to move on to our next speaker, so Uhuru. And I want to also salute Sister Destiny Blackwell, who was on here with us today. Destiny is here with CAUSE. CAUSE is the Carolina Amazonians United for Solidarity and Empowerment. I know Destiny is on the road, you are traveling, so I appreciate you for being here, but really enjoyed meeting this comrade. And go ahead and unmute and let me know when you're here, because I know you might be in a rough patch, but want to appreciate you for coming on, Destiny. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
There you go. Yay.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, can hear you great. Uhuru.
All right. Uhuru, it's great to be here and happy to see all the comments that Roberto in the chat.
Oh, now it's
was there earlier. Okay.
But go ahead, Destiny.
Slowly and clearly. Okay.
Yeah. Or if go off the Wi-Fi or the camera, But either way, keep going. Uhuru.
Is this making the audio any better, or should I turn the camera off?
Yeah, that sounds much better.
Okay, cool. So the time that we spent in Cuba, I was a part of the first section of the delegation that was in a conference training sessions with labor leaders and activists literally from all throughout the Western Hemisphere, from Argentina to basically Canada. We had such dense representation throughout all of the Americas, and the issue of colonialism being central to worker power everywhere, US hegemony and colonialism is hurting the entire world. But I would say that one of the biggest things that I took away from that I was enriched by my time in Cuba was just learning what empowered workers are able to achieve, seeing that there are worker rights that we basically don't have in the United States, that we know not of, the right to employment and the right to childcare and the right to vacations. They have mandatory vacations in Cuba. And so coming back as an Amazon worker where my time off is earned by the minute is real culture shock almost. But seeing that these things are rights and they're not, and things that when you raise in the United States seem impossible, people will be like, how could you do childcare as a right? And then that's the end of the conversation. But in Cuba, it's not the end of the conversation. In Cuba, it is the beginning of the conversation, and solutions come after that. And so that coming back, seeing what is possible is amazing. Of course, you can see everywhere the impacts of the blockade. I would say probably most evident in the shortage of gasoline. There were plenty of cars on the road, but there was a shortage of buses, which impacted people's ability to mobilize for the May Day March. If the weather had not intervened, you would see motorbikes, old cars, and horses and buggies on the same road. And this is the impact of U.S. imperialism. But because, like, I would like to unite with the African People's Socialist Party analysis of colonialism and the colonial mode of production being the foundational problem here, because it is colonialization all throughout. And the same issue of Cuba being on the state sponsors of terrorism list is exactly the same process of colonial domination that is putting Uhuru comrades being targeted by the FBI. That is the exact same thing that has the people who are fighting Cop City in Atlanta being charged with domestic terrorism. We have journalists in North Carolina, where I'm from, who have been arrested for recording the police as they clear out an encampment of houseless people. And this tide of rising fascism is it is the colonial domination happening internally to us. And so the fight in Cuba is not a connected fight. It is the same fight as our own liberation, because they are also African people. So one other thing, I guess the other main highlight, I would say, and this was a surprise for me while we were there, was that we organized, and we independently organized Black Women Summits while we were there. One of the sisters from the Brazilian delegation, who was representing mental health workers, she stood up in one of the meetings and said that we need to listen to Black women, that Black people make up the majority of the population in Brazil, and that women are also a majority. And if you listen, but they are the most oppressed. And if you listen to them, if you free the Black women, you'll free everybody. And I was uniting with her, and we set up a conversation between the Black women of the delegation. We had to, bring in translators. We had to translate everything to Spanish and to Portuguese. And this cultural exchange, this dialogue, where we get to see what are the conditions of Black women in Brazil. I was personally shocked to see similarities, like Black infant mortality is also an issue. They said that the doctors in Brazil are so racist they don't want to touch Black women sometimes, and issues that we see, like where it doesn't matter which, like if you wear a red tie or a blue tie, which side of the line you're on, everyone seems united against Black people. And that were conditions that were mirrored in Brazil, issues of education and all kinds of issues. And so, and seeing the similarities and where there were differences, it was differences based off of the proclivities of the colonizers, whether the Portuguese colonizers were committing genocide by trying to breed out Black people, or whether the American colonizers were committing genocide through eugenics. We had mirrored pictures, but this was a very deep and heavy cultural dialogue of the present and historical conditions of Black people throughout this hemisphere. And it was such an enriching experience. And I think Mwezi might have a picture of some of our Black women summits that we got up early, because we organized this ourselves. When when that sister stood up and said that, I united with her, and then we gathered the Black women who were at the delegation to meet and have this conversation. And we found our own translators, and it was great. But I will say no one else has said anything critical in this, but I will raise a criticism, which is something that we also realized in our conversation, which is that a lot of the not all of the white working class is under the leadership of the revolutionary black working class. Like, they want to be the managers of the revolution, and we saw it with the Brazilian delegation. They stopped wanting to let the Black woman represent them and stand up and talk in the group. We saw it in our delegation where the white leftists were controlling the funds. The white leftists were trying to tell Black people how to dress. And in big and small ways, if you don't decolonize your own mind, and you will be reproducing colonialism in your liberatory struggles. And so that's another reason to unite with the Uhuru solidarity that does follow the leadership of the revolutionary African working class. And that I guess I'm not paying attention to time at all. But I just, coming back from Cuba, seeing what is possible. I'm from North Carolina. North Carolina has about 10 million people. Our slave economy had been built on tobacco and cotton. Cuba has 11 million people. Their slave economy was built on sugar and tobacco. To me, the similarities, the connection between our people is the differences are just who colonized us and whether we are continental or an island nation. And seeing what Cuba was able to do, it made revolution possible to me. It made me see, oh, this is doable. There are sacrifices that had to be made. They've had the colonial bully of the planet on top of them for decades, but they, as we say, and still I rise, they have continued creating liberation for their people in their country. And so I would say material support for Cuba, material support for Uhuru, because it is the same fight. But Cuba's not on the state-sponsored terrorism list because they think good things. It's because they do good things. Uhuru isn't being targeted as a foreign agent because they just think good things, because they do good things. And so I would encourage, as others have encouraged, for you to make your support material and to donate for the Uhuru defense as well. And that's all I have to say. I'll keep it brief since we're at 3 o'clock already.
Wow. I think I couldn't have said it better myself. Just really want to salute that presentation, Destiny, and you can see why we had a great time on this delegation. And we will at some point be able to put up that picture, yes, of the Black Women's Summit, and just really want to unite with Destiny in bringing forth the question of colonialism and this struggle being led by the working class. And just really want to salute you, comrade. And I hope that we will continue to keep in touch. And look, we just got it up in time. Salute to our Zoom techs. Just have to always salute you, comrades. And this is a picture of us at the Black Women's Summit early in the morning, making sure that we had time to discuss revolution and the solutions. So Uhuru, comrades. All right. Well, we are a little bit behind time. And what we're going to do right now is just go through and just do a quick appeal, because we want to mobilize the people to understand the importance of this fight back and why we are here struggling on today. I see some questions in the chat, and our chat moderators are saving those questions because we do want to take a moment to address these questions further as we continue to deepen this question and this international solidarity that we are building. So Uhuru, Malik, thank you for being here. And comrades, just want to again give a round of applause for our phenomenal panel as well, and we're going to jump right into this appeal. So again, this is the part of the program, where we know everybody has an opportunity and a chance to get involved and to and to contribute. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to raise these resources. And with the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign, as we have been saying, we are in phase 1 of our fundraising goal. So what that means is that we have, and we can move to the next 2 slides. that we have total at this point, and actually since this webinar, we have raised a total of, we are getting there, we have raised $385 for this webinar, and I see Fofeed has pledged $50, so that does not include pledges, what I just said as well. And so I want to salute you, Comrade Fofeed, for making a pledge to pay on the 15th. Yes, it is that time of the month where money is looking kind of funny, so we got to make some calculated decisions, but let's put our money to work for this movement. So we have, again, the goal of raising $2,500, and I believe we can do it, and I believe that we can continue to do it even after this webinar is over. So make those pledges on today. Thank you, comrade. Next slide. Uhuru. So this leaves us with $51,491 left to raise for our benchmark goal. As stated, we have our goal, and that the reason why we have this amount, you know, for the campaign is because we have to be able to, as we said, secure the legal representation for Chairman Amalia Shatella and the unindicted so-called co-conspirators, and now the indicted Uhuru 3. So we, we understand that we are determined to, force this fight back so that Chairman and them do not face these bogus charges, and that we have a legal team that is prepared to go to war in the courtroom to fight and to win. So because of you, comrades, and your profound support, we have made it this far. So I want to appreciate you all so much. Thank you. Next slide. And I see more donations are coming in as well. So thank you so much, comrades. Keep on sending those in. So everybody who has donated right now, we want to thank you, because what you did is you went to handsoffuhuru.org/donate and you gave whatever you could forward this fight back on behalf of the African People's Socialist Party and the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense Campaign. And I really just want to appreciate every single donor, because it is, to the people who've given $1, $5, $10, $20, $100, $1,000, or the tens of thousands. Every donation counts, every donor counts, every amount that you give counts. And we have not been able, we would not have made it this far without your donations. So I just want to make that very clear. And I want to salute everybody for, continuing to do what we can, because now is the time. And as the chairman says, we are not going back. This is not going to be COINTELPRO all over. This is not going to be the civil rights struggle all over. This is not going to be anything all over again, because this time we will win. And what, that looked like, right, and what this looks like is thousands of donations that have been coming in since the launch of this campaign on July 29th, when we were first attacked. So, I want to remind the people that, and we can go to the next slide. Thank you, comrade. Remind you again to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate, because we will win. And as we say, the oppressed peoples of the world are here to really wage this fight back, and we have to be able to get organized. So part of what we are doing with this fight back is, and I'm just going to give a quick total right now, because I see here that we have $560 raised so far, and we have a $100 pledge from Comrade Ben Hameen. Thank you, Penny, for your $25 donation as well. And just want to salute everybody who has been donating. This is really wonderful, comrades. Let's go ahead and push it to the limit, where we can. So again, this brings us to a total of, what did I say there? 560. And let me know if I have that incorrect, comrades, but thank you so much. This is great. So again, there are givebacks for anybody who gives to this campaign. And we have an image here where you can get a chance to look at some of the great givebacks. Everybody will receive a sticker when you donate. And otherwise, you will also receive a sweatshirt for any donations over a certain amount. I think that's $1,000 donation. You receive a free Hands Off Uhuru sweatshirt. But if you go and get a Hands Off Uhuru sweatshirt or a t-shirt, that also counts and contributes towards the campaign. So don't just, think, you can think about outside the box how you want to give back to this fight back. Because it's really significant. And I want to really, salute this amount that we've raised so far, because it's very significant that this money will go towards the upcoming legal expenses that we will have, because we are going up a federal up against the federal government that has an unlimited access to the stolen resources of African and other colonized peoples around the planet. And so we cannot be limited with access to our own resources, and we have to be able to build the capacity to cover any expenses that may arise on this legal front, so we can, as we say, put the FBI on trial, put the state on trial, and fund this fight back. So go ahead and go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And I want to also, say that one thing that you've heard us say before in these webinars is that your donation is an act of resistance. And it's important to understand that, because it's not just a donation. It is literally saying that I detest and I denounce what is happening. And now is the time for all of us to stand up. The Uhuru movement will win. And when that happens, and again, Uhuru means freedom. So the freedom movement will win. And when that happens, it will undoubtedly change the world. And all of us who stand on the side of as the African People's Socialist Party is fighting for African people to have the right to defend, their freedom of speech, we are going to rise up and we're going to fight back. So I want to say that your donation is a demand, as Comrade Nesbitt clearly said as well, that African people should have the right to free speech, and that you can do that by going to handsoffuhuru.org. So lastly, it's important to know that these resources will also be going to funding the capacity for this campaign to grow 1,000-fold in the world. And what we mean by that is that when this campaign was first, hit off, the chairman and the comrades were on the ground touring the Northeast and all throughout, the United States with, different events to be able to get the word out about this campaign. And again, we plan on doing that again. So, going to these different cities to expose the state and putting forth the boldness of Chairman Omali Yeshitela at community events, at campuses, and at festivals. And we plan to take the Hands Off Uhuru to a road, on the road to a city near you. Now, we understand that, not everybody can be at every meeting or at every march or in the streets or at every demonstration, but because all of this takes resources. But we want to let you know that you can make your dollar, make your money march for you. So go ahead and make a donation today. And I want to salute Comrade Nesbitt for your $20 donation. Uhuru, that takes us to $680. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and make my act of resistance, and I'm going to donate $50 towards this campaign. Right after I finish talking, I'll go ahead and take care of that. So I don't know what that takes us to, comrades, but we are getting closer and closer to our goal, because yes, this is an act of resistance, and I want to salute the people for making that very clear. So comrades, again, donate to the Legal Defense Fund. We can beat them. And we can turn this thing around, and not because, and this will go down in history. We want to just make that very clear. And I think we all are aware of this period, that this will go down in history, not because they locked up another African revolutionary, but because this time we stopped them dead in their tracks by the people saying, hell no, and freedom of speech, and Uhuru, hands off Cuba, hands off my people, hands off everyone. And we're not going to sit by and watch them and let them, have a legal lynching of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and add his name to the long list of political prisoners that are already, like Mumia Abu Jamal, Leonard Peltier, Amin Jamil Abdullah, Rochelle Singh, McGee, Ed Poindexter. I mean, the list goes on. So I want to, this takes us now, I want to appreciate our calculators. We are at $780 raised. Uhuru comrades, keep it going. This is phenomenal. And again, because we are going to put them on track. I hope the state is watching and they see that the people are not backing down, and that this, and that pledges are coming in, and that we're going to win this. So again, when you donate, you fund the ability for this legal team to secure this fight back. And it means that exposing these bogus charges and this bogus US state for its long-standing brutal war and repression and violence against the struggles for Black freedom, against the struggles for liberation, against the struggle to have life's worth of dignity and with no oppression and suffering. So this Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Defense campaign wants to let you know that we will expose the US government's history of surveillance, harassment, arrest, imprisonment, assassinations against the African liberation movement and leaders of the past in all of our liberation liberation struggle. So you can count on us to do that. So go ahead and donate and continue to spread the word about this campaign so that others know where they can use their resources as well. So I want to appreciate everybody for making a collective commitment that we will reach this total. I believe that we will reach it by the end of by the end of today, and if not by the end of this weekend. And because we look forward to giving you an update at our next meeting, which will be a really phenomenal fundraising update as well. So, comrades, I want to end this appeal by saying salute to everybody who donated. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Chairman Amalia Shatella, drop the charges on the Uhuru 3, donate today, and thank you for those of you that did donate and has been said will donate. So Uhuru, and thank you, Layla K, for your $50 donation. Right on, comrades. So this takes us to a new total of, I'll wait because when I start saying things, I'm always wrong. So I'm just gonna wait. There you go. And then we have another donation coming in. This is Jesse for your $50 donation. Uhuru, we are at $830 raised for this webinar. Uhuru, comrades, this is wonderful. And if any, I don't know how much is left, but if somebody is listening and you know somebody who can just go ahead and wipe out the rest of this, go ahead and just let that person know, hey, we're trying to beat the US state, you know, in the courtroom. Can you donate, you know, $1,000? So go ahead and do that. So Uhuru, comrades, we're going to go on to our closing remarks. Actually, I'm going to just give a quick update about, we're just going to show maybe one slide for the announcements, which if we can pull up just the first one, and I can kind of just guide us through really quickly. Thank you, comrade. I do want to, as has been said, announce that thank you, comrade. So let's just go ahead and scroll through and I'll just kind of talk through them. So again, thank you. So follow us on social media, go to the Hands Off Uhuru website where you can find news and analysis. Thank you, comrade. Next slide. Next slide as well. You will find articles and a really great presentation of the chairman from Huelva, Spain. You found this event most likely because you went to our event page. And if not, that's cool. But we want you to know that where you can find us is on June 25th. Hands Off Uhuru will be participating in the off the list of state sponsors of terrorist Cuba rallies, which will be taking place in Washington, D.C. on June 25th. And the Hands Off Uhuru will be there speaking, representing, and continuing our deepened solidarity and support for Cuba. So I want to appreciate everybody and tell you to also find a way to get there on the ground, and let's continue to build international solidarity. So more information can be put in the chat about that. You can go to nnoc.org and to find out more information about that as well. And if you're in the DC area, go ahead and contact the campaign and come under the banner if you're with Hands Off Uhuru, and let's all make it happen together. Uhuru, thank you so much, comrades, for that announcement. Now, I just want to, for the sake of time, just kind of open it up for any closing remarks by the chairman. And if anybody has any anything burning to say, please, let's keep it maybe to like a minute. But I do want to just really salute our panel. And I do want to see if the chairman has any closing remarks before we adjourn today's meeting. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade. I really, let's see. I would hope that if there were people who wanted to, you know, say something, that they would go ahead and do it. I would make a couple of brief comments, but if there were others who want to say something, I think that would be appropriate.
Great, I unite. So anybody who, anyone from our panel, if there's any announcements or anything, or just any closing remarks that you would like to make, I know we kind of briefly discussed this might happen, but it would be great to hear from you. Nesbitt, go ahead, comrade. Uhuru. Yeah, and if you could raise your hand, that would be helpful. That was helpful. There you go.
I was trying to unmute myself. I'm just going to say that this is very, very important. This webinar, this meeting, this mass meeting is very important because it's important for us to show solidarity with each other, because no matter what we bring up, be it Cuba, be it liberation on the streets, be it ability to sell fresh organic foods in our community, no matter what comes up. If it is not according to the hegemony of the United States government, then they're going to try to shut it down. They're going to try to keep you quiet and try to make sure that you cannot congregate. And I think the example of that is the African People's Socialist Party, both on the Venceremos Brigade, the Committee to Protect Free Speech, and the Miami Car Caravan support you with every inch of support and dynamics and enthusiasm and ideological struggle we have. You should know that, and it's very important for other people to make that declaration and to show it by their own actions, their own donations, and their own activity. Thank you very much.
Uhuru, right on. Thank you. I fully unite. Yeah, it is all centered in the colonial contradiction, Uhuru. All right, anyone else? And if not, just want to again appreciate you for what you have contributed already to this really special program, Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrades, I'd like to express my appreciation to everybody as well. And to you again, Comrade Mwezi, for presiding over the leadership of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa counter-offensive that has been initiated by our party and movement, and all of the work that you've done with this mass meeting and deepening the relationship of our revolution with Cuba and the struggle for Cuba. We want to say that the blockade has to be ended, that it is a real attack on Cuba in part, poor Cuba in so many ways, in terms of economic infrastructure, in terms of resources immediately available to it, in terms of technology, in terms of even access to the general international bourgeois markets and resources. Cuba, obviously very poor, but the thing about Cuba is that Cuba represents the future, and that's something that every imperial power, all the colonizers recognize that Cuba represents the future. And in fact, the Cuban Revolution is powerfully significant in part because it negates the colonial mode of production. It's not just simply that there are people who are struggling and living, but the very success of the Cuban Revolution is a negation. It's a material negation of the colonial mode of production. So we say in the blockade, what has happened, of course, is that with the arrival, the imposition of a colonial mode of production on the world economy, on the peoples of the world, we've seen that the colonizers have erected walls all around the world, separating us all, separating the various peoples of the world. They would imprison people for traveling, who are colonized, from traveling from one place to the other, because they want these walls to prevail. They would make it difficult for people to come across the border where they are terrorizing people on a regular basis. That is to say, right here within the settler colony of the United States. So the blockade, of course, is to make it impossible for Cuba to continue to be the ideological influence that it is in terms of an actual material manifestation of the power of people, of the workers, of who can break free from the colonial death grip, what it is that we can do, and it is negation of colonialism itself. And that's something that the African People's Socialist Party works to do on every front, not just in the United States, but truly in the United States, but throughout Africa, the Caribbean as well. So in the blockade, we say that these travel restrictions that have been imposed on people, the fact is that there are some people in the United States who are stupid enough, perhaps, to believe that this is simply an attack on Cuba, the travel restrictions, but that goes two ways. It means that it's an attack on people's rights to travel. This is something that supposedly is guaranteed by international law, the ability of people to travel and people in this country, many of them, some of them anyways, celebrate the fact that you cannot travel to Cuba, which is an imposition, it's an assault on their rights. This travel restrictions, it has to happen. It's one of the ways that people engage in an exchange of information. The bourgeoisie in the United States doesn't have any problem communicating and connecting with each other all around the world, and it doesn't have any problem connecting with gusanos or wherever they're located, whether they're in Colombia, being used against the Venezuelan revolution or what have you. They have the right to travel. It is we who do not have the right to travel and communicate with each other. So we're saying in the travel restrictions. And beyond that, this whole notion of the United States of charging and having Cuba on some kind of list of sponsors of terrorism. And when the terrorists can define who are terrorists and who are not, when the colonizers can define who the criminals are, when you have this kind of situation, it is a really backward situation. So part of what this informs us of, we make these demands, we push these demands using all the democratic spaces that we have fought and died for throughout the world and inside the United States as well. We make these demands, but we recognize that ultimately it is we who will make a determination what is going to happen. Because as we've said before, we recognize that there is a world economy that's organized around colonialism, that all of us have this relationship within a parasitic kind of social system. And it is a social system that we must recognize even as we pursue the aims that we've talked about, even as we say, hands off Cuba, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. We're talking to a wounded beast. We are talking at a wounded beast. We're talking at a social system that is experiencing tremendous, tremendous crisis where you have a situation within the same time frame of the attack on the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement. They attack us in July. And then they raid the home of no, they don't have a home. They have this entire community that's owned by Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump. They would indict us in April. And then in June, 2 months later, they would indict Donald Trump. And there's going to be a tendency by some people to conflate what is happening, the two, and it's going to be something that the rulers will show as evidence of their impartiality. In fact, some of them are bragging about the fact that this is a demonstration, what they're doing with Trump, that no one is above the law. But this has nothing to do with whether or not someone is above bourgeois law. The fact is that what we're looking at with the attack on the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement is an attack on forces who, like Cuba, who, like Venezuela, who, like Afghans and other peoples around the world trying to break free of this colonial mode of production, challenge the existence of the whole social system. When you look at what's happening with Trump, you're seeing a contest that's happening between different sectors of the bourgeoisie, the colonial ruling class itself that sits on the platform that exists at the expense of all the colonized people in Cuba and other places around the world. This is not something that shows that no one is above the law. The fact of the matter is that it is a contest between sectors of the ruling class. That's why they can indict Trump now, but they haven't indicted anybody for the illegal strangulation of Cuba. No president has been indicted for the crimes committed against the people in Vietnam. No one is being indicted, neither Trump nor the current inhabitant of the White House, for the fact that they are using sanctions that are acts of war against the people of Afghanistan, against African people in Zimbabwe, starving people in Zimbabwe. When are we going to see some kind of indictment against the U.S. president for that, or for the murder of Fred Hampton, for where the FBI clearly played a role in it? For what president are you going to see being indicted for that, or being indicted for the role of the United States government in overthrowing Nkrumah, murdering? You had a contest between France and the United States and Belgium to see who was going to be able to capture and murder Patrice Lumumba first. What president was indicted
because of the frame up of Marcus Garvey or the Haitian revolution, the invasion of Haiti in 1915 or something like that. This is not a contest to put somebody, lock somebody up as an expression of the fact that no one is above the law. This is a contest between sectors of the ruling class. And Trump's offense ultimately is the fact that he has broken with the sector of the ruling class on a lot of different things, and the temerity to engage in the relationship with Russia, where they want to make resources, as to say, a sector of the bourgeoisie, the temerity to do things that challenge the Atlanticist bloc that's dominated the world for a long time, with criticism of the United Nations and NATO that's been used to bomb people, even as we have this discussion, kill people in various places in Ukraine and Russia. So the thing is, it's not, you cannot conflate the two things, nor can you even celebrate the fact that they are attacking Trump, because this is a political struggle between them that they will use against the people. So once you open the door to the vampire, then he come in and kill everybody. You cannot open the door and the assault on free speech and then say, I just want to deny the free speech of this group. You can't say that this is not Omali Shatela's free speech or the African People's Socialist Party free speech. It's free speech for the people, and it has to be defended. And we have to have the organization, the commitment, and the unity to defend the interests of the oppressed peoples ourselves. That's where our support and defense is going to come from, not from any arm of the state. So I want to thank you again, Comrade Mwezi, and everybody who has come to participate in this this incredibly important mass meeting. Notify people that the Hands Off Uhuru is moving toward a unified effort with the Black is Back Coalition. So in November, we're in the process of building the biggest united free speech, anti-colonial, democratic mobilization, unification that's ever been seen since 1966 in Havana. So we're saying that we're going to have a mobilization in November. We're calling everybody who say believe in free speech, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, in the blockade, in this notion, this silliness about Cuba being on a list of supporters of terrorism and things like that. And let's go ahead and win this freedom, build this incredible unity that I think this meeting represents an important starting point, or certainly an important bridge toward that. And just want to say, adelante siempre. We're not going backwards. Adelante siempre.
Siempre. Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off.
Hands off Africa. Izwele tu.
E Africa.
E Africa. Izwele tu. Thank you, Chairman. Hands off Cuba, hands off Africa. Salute to everybody for this meeting, and we will see you again next time. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, Robert. There we go. Uhuru.
Adelante.
Hey, unmute. Let's go ahead and.
Adelante siempre.
Adelante
the best word I learned was Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, yeah.
Venceremos. Yeah.
Venceremos.